in Tallinn, Estonia, where we actually invest into media tech companies and media tech solutions we're going to talk about today. And with a very, very great pleasure, I'm glad to invite to the session Laura Olin from a Helsinki-based immersive and extended reality studio, and Saar, who is a futurist and strategist, most recently works with Red Bull Media House, but also has a track record at Maker Studios, AOL, and Disney as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Like in those very exciting fireside chats, our biggest enemy is time. So we have to get into the heart of the matter very quickly. Before we get into the subject matter, please post questions if you have those. I think you might have many, so please post them into the chat, to our moderator as well. So we're happy to take those questions at the end of our conversation. And I forgot to mention that this session today is organized in partnership with the Geneva International Film Festival. But Laura, how come a very exciting and I would say a pathfinding XR company comes from Finland? Zoan came into the radar last year with this, I think now legendary Vappu concert. Vappu, by the way, is a Finnish holiday on 1st of May, which is one of the craziest holidays I guess I've ever seen. But Zoan actually powered this amazing Vappu concert from the Temppeliauke, I think Temppeliauke in Helsinki, right?
Senate Square.
Senate Square, excuse me,
yes.
Right? Which was actually attended by not less than 1 million people. So
1.4 million to be exact, and there are 5.5 million people in Finland, so that's quite a big proportion of the Finnish people.
But and this particular experience, of course, combined many things. There were musical live performance, there were interactivity, and there was the virtual Helsinki created by Zoan. But could you a little bit just walk us through, how those kinds of really amazing experiences, what I would basically call like Fortnite for rest of the humans, or a Fortnite for old people. How did this come about?
So I'm going to use that Fortnite for old people, and I include myself into those old people. But yeah, so basically Zoan has existed already for 11 years, and we started real estate 3D modelings and things like that. Zoan is founded by Miikka Roosendaal, who is still leading the company. I joined in like 5 years ago, and it was around the time we started thinking that what else could you do with 3D than just do 3D models of real estate. My background is in marketing, so we started thinking about like utilizing this for marketing, but quite fast. We actually got our first bigger client, that was the National Museum of Finland. And I can just quickly share you what we did with them. So basically we did a living painting, which meant that we made a VR experience. Just a moment, I'm gonna share this so that you can also see. So we made a VR experience out of a traditional painting that was about the Diet of Finland back in 1863.
Yes.
And that was sort of the starting point of our artistic things. And I believe that we have always like wanted to open up to normal people, saying that we do have really great technical skills and technical people who work for us, but we also love to help organizations, artists, different kind of people who are not professional in tech to get on board and start trying out and piloting new tech. And I believe that that's also part of the reasons why we are here where we are today.
Recently, also, you have been actually bridging into a variety of directions. You have been virtualizing the cityscape, creating virtual exhibitions, and building virtual museums. My own favorite is particularly the Alto experience. I'm a very very big fan of Alvar Aalto, by the way. But the experience, what I saw, was absolutely stunning. So I'd first like to actually go into this virtual Helsinki concept. So
Yeah.
could you a little bit talk about that virtual Helsinki? I think it's a quite a bold. It was, and it's a quite a bold step into the future. Really thinking, how a city would come alive in a digital space.
Yes, that's correct. I'll just try to jump quickly to the virtual Helsinki part. I have a couple of slides from there as well. So yes, virtual Helsinki is also one example of trying out and failing fast. So basically, the beginning of this project, this was just like a passion project. Miikka's idea was already like back in 2015 when the first Oculus developer kit came out, that in the future we will all meet in virtual cities, a bit like this metaverse. So what we
Yes.
started doing was like trying out that how could we model some parts of the city into this very realistic virtual city. The first attempt didn't succeed. The second attempt wasn't really successful either, but the third attempt was something that we realized that this could be developed into like a bigger city of experiences. And then in 2018 we started collaboration with the city of Helsinki. And I know that you're a fan of Alvar Aalto, so I don't know, can you see this if I'm sharing now a little bit of that Alvar Aalto experience that you mentioned? Just a moment. So you can see that this is all 3D modeled and is part of the virtual Helsinki experience. So Alvar Aalto is probably the most famous Nordic architect and designer. And this is his home in Munkkiniemi in Helsinki. And this is one example of the quality of virtual Helsinki. And yeah, we have been using this in many ways. Currently, we are hoping to find a partner so that we could start offering tours in this home together with the Alvar Aalto Foundation. So that's an example of virtual Helsinki. And yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, then the next chapter sort of, this was all made for virtual reality headsets. But then when Corona hit us, what happened was that, people simply couldn't go to places where they could access virtual reality headsets. And then what happened was that we needed to start thinking that how are we going to bring this game engine based experience for everybody if they only have their own computers or mobile phones. And that's where the idea, one of those ideas, was this virtual concert that you already mentioned. And that was something that happened. It's the 1st of May celebrations that was cancelled. And together with the city of Helsinki, we tried to figure out something virtual that would keep people in their homes instead of coming to the streets what they usually do. And JVG is the most popular rap duo in Finland. And we did a concert together with them. And as you can see the also a short video clip. You will see the virtual Helsinki there on the background. It's the same 3D model that we had been building for years. We just decorated it with the band's own style.
Junalaiva flygari, otan tääl pysäkin. Bruna aina ysärin, suuntaan mä kysäsin. En näe eteen millään tie, muistuttaa pöllön silmää. Täällä on rämmittävää, onneks meillä on Flindassa lämmittävää. Paska haisee ja panjat soi, joku vessassa vaikeroi. Moottori rupee lämpee, tää MMP, reissutarinoita.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was it, and that was quite a big thing to make happen in less than 3 weeks. And the technology, like, we knew that in theory this works, but we had never tried it out in real life, and there was a little bit of panic during the last days, but somehow we managed to make it happen. And the great thing for the audience was that they could, what you couldn't see on the video, they could pick their avatars and then join the concert as avatars, and there were 1,000 avatars were picked from the live audience of 700,000 to dance on that square and clap their hands and whatever. So you can imagine that this was also a big hit, not only for adults but also for kids who love to do that during the concert. And that was also a big boost for the city of Helsinki, who want to brand themselves as a sustainable capital, a technology capital, and so on. That was a big virtual concert back in the days, and the media value, I guess, was like, we reached like 500 million people with the news. So that was a success.
Yes, and
yes.
I remember even the front page article in the Guardian, right? And how much that would cost.
Yeah,
cost,
and you know what? It's not only about that, but what's been really great is that we've had so many people, come and say ever since that, oh my God, that concert saved our Vappu. Thank you so much. And that actually feels even more than the figures on the media card or anything like that.
I want to little bit like zoom in. You show the Alto experience, but from our other conversations, I've seen that you've also done quite a lot of work with art and museums, and Lasipalatsi in Helsinki, which is a very well-known, I would say, an arts venue altogether. They've just recently opened a new contemporary art museum, Maamas Rex, and you also did a lot of virtualization work with them, if I'm correct.
Yes, that was also something that happened when Corona happened and the museum was closed. So there was this next generation exhibition. So that was something that we created a virtual version of, not the whole exhibition, but from some artists' works. And what was great there was that then you can use the media in different way. We don't just put those art pieces on display as in the physical museum, but you could make them move, you could make them bigger, smaller, all of that. So that was something we've done. And also another work that happened now this summer was the Helsinki Biennial, where we collaborated with the city of Helsinki and Facebook to create this immersive experience that was used basically in promotion of the Biennial. So that's super, super exciting.
So I'm now a little bit heading to quite a provocative territory, and I apologize. I apologize in advance. You having mastered the technology and having different types of showcases, both the virtual cityscape, the work for museums, doing entertainment experiences and etc. What do you think? Are we really seeing now finally the emergence of the virtual museum, or let's say a little bit half of the metaverse? Artistic organizations have been historically, at least some of those I have been working with, have been very protective of their physical spaces, and much of the dialogue has been that if there is not that particular physicality, both in terms of the venue and as well as the artwork or the contents in the venue, if I may say so, that if it's not physical, then end of conversation. What do are we really entering that new type of a reality where the hybrid, the virtual and the real are intersecting, and the experiences are worthwhile or powerful on both sides?
I think so, and I hope so, and I also think that the field is so big that there are probably there are people who want to preserve, and then there are people who want to move forward and who are very like, in a pioneering spirit. And I think that, as in any case, you first need to talk with the people who want to go forward and explore the new territory, and then maybe also the others will follow. There is in Finland, there is this, and I believe this is also in other countries, but there is this digital museum called digimuseo.fi, which sort of collects digital content from different museums. And the idea is there at currently it's free of charge to go and explore, but we've been discussing with them that if we could create a bit more like immersive and spectacular content, so we could even have a little payment that you can get if you go and see it. And I think that if you are creating a work of art and you can just put it out there digitally, and anyone from the world can pay a few euros and come and see. So yes. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? I'm not even mentioning NFTs because we are talking about yet another thing, but really like just like a normal museum experience.
And you would be able to have that type of a touring conversational curation and so forth, right? So it's not only about the art pieces, but it's about also the venue and the and the sequencing and the atmosphere and so forth.
Yeah, there are like so many possibilities, because of course you can have a, like what I showed first, you have a traditional piece of art and then you sort of create a virtual extension to it using VR or AR or whatever. But then again, you can also have like totally digital art, and the idea is like that you immerse yourself in it, and it's made for digital platforms, and the better sort of hardware you have, the better it looks and feels. So I do think that this is not just like a either or, it's rather that there are many shades of gray.
Last question, to ground this discussion in a little bit more reality, what are the kind of the do's and don'ts for, let's say, for art organizations or museums to, if they start thinking about it? Is it really a gimmick or is it delivering value? I would say value in terms of attendance and experiences and so forth. And what would be the sort of the first 3 or 4 steps what an organization has to think about when they say, hey, we would be thinking about building our own virtual experience? I know that Google, for example, especially in the COVID time, has been very active on pushing their own Google Museum solution. But imagine if that is not suitable for political or other reasons, then where to start? Is it an expensive affair? Is it the medium budget affair? Low budget affair? Certainly not. But what to keep in mind?
Well, I think the first thing is to gain understanding what are we talking about when we are talking about like virtual content in a museum context, because some people simply think that you just make a 360 film out of this and put it on a headset. I don't want that. I hate everything virtual. And if you think like that, then okay, well, that's your opinion, but unfortunately that's just like one fraction of the opportunities you have.
Yes.
So what I would like talk with somebody like us and see what are you doing, what are your goals, and what opportunities there are, and that's like the first step. And then you can start talking about like that budgets or what it would, how you would like deliver it to the client. Is it something that they will come and see, or is it something that they can utilize on their own computers? But I think that definitely just like defining what this virtual could mean to you, that is the biggest do in the beginning.
Interesting. And I just would like to remind here that the experiences what Zoan is delivering are not only experienced on headsets, but they can be also experienced on phones and computers and so forth. On that note, Sander, I'm going to turn to you now, and we'll come back, Laura, on questions on metaverse and actually the intersection of kind of real and physical and virtual, especially with this tokenization project that Zoan is, I think, undertaking. Sander, you have been working quite a lot with platforms, and obviously platforms are powering, already powering the creator world and the artist world, and they're also powering the immersive world. If you think about Oculus or HTC or any other platforms, your work centers around creators and platforms, and we've been discussing with each other that understanding platforms, how they work, and what type of strategy to build for platforms is one of the most crucial skills right now in any type of management, whether you're in business or the arts.
Absolutely, so, couldn't agree more.
So I think you have a few slides to show us on the sort of status quo and the present state of platforms.
Absolutely, I'm really excited about the independent creator renaissance that we're going through at the moment. And just for context, what has changed? Why are we talking about it now, and why is it more relevant now than maybe it was 5-10 years ago? There are several things that have changed. Number one, our creation is now completely free. Instead of being limited to the movie screen 2-hour format or the TV half-hour, we can create any format on any platform. That can be immersive, that can be 2D, 3D, it can be animated, it doesn't matter. We're fully free to create on any canvas. The distribution is also democratized, meaning that we're not fighting for the scarce real estate in movie theaters or, for example, in museums or channels on TV, but we have a completely abundant distribution. Anybody can upload anything. And also the consumption is moved from, being somebody in a company or in a suit somewhere sitting and deciding what's going to be shown. It's now all fully algorithmic. 80% of the movies that are discovered and watched on Netflix are discovered through the algorithm, somebody clicking on something that's recommended to them. So those three enablers, being able to create on any canvas, being able to distribute it freely, and being able to be discovered by anyone has completely changed the creator landscape. And there's a huge fight for the eyeballs now, all the way from the traditional players from the old world to new players entering the space, by commoditizing Hollywood, by selling you phones and giving you streaming services for free in Apple TV case, or Amazon selling you, shoes and toilet paper and offering you Prime Video. And what I'm most excited about is this new wave of creators who are entering this space, who are completely independently building their audiences on those platforms. And just to put it in perspective, a lot of the attention is given to the big platforms like Netflix with 200 million subscribers and Amazon Prime Video and many of the other big streaming services or other services that are out there. But we often forget that where audience spends their time is somewhere completely different, like YouTube, who reaches more than 2 billion people, or Instagram and TikTok, who are both about 1 billion users now, or even someone like Snapchat. And that's why the creators have been able to, first of all, grow their audience on those platforms, or discover an audience with not somebody being a gatekeeper in between. That was the first renaissance, really, the first layer that started in early 2000s. And then in 2010s, those creators were able to monetize their content and start building sustainability into their content creation through ads and sponsorship. So they became almost like billboards for brands. But now we're entering this third layer, which means that those creators are not there, just to, hey, can I get some views and can I make a few dollars from the ads, but actually truly build franchises and build their own businesses on top of that. And that's the phase we've entered now. So here's an example of someone like Mr. Beast, whose core audience is built on YouTube, where he's got more than 800 million views a month and more than 110 million subscribers. And he's built several businesses around him. He's got a burger joint now. He's opened more than 900 restaurants in the US, and he's now opening in Canada and the UK. He's also launched his own apps. He's done lots of investment in the financial space, and he's doing a lot of philanthropy. So he's using his audience that he's built on those platforms to then build franchise around him. Charlie D'Amelio is somebody who's built her audience on TikTok predominantly and has launched several brands with Hollister and Morphe and many of the other big players, as well as got original shows on Hulu and Snapchat. And one that I'm very excited about, which is a European example from London, is a kids content company called Moonbug. It is a $265 million fund that has acquired some of the largest kids IP on digital platforms like Blippi or Cocomelon or Little Baby Bum that you might have heard of if you have kids, and amassed more than 7 billion views every month. So almost every 2 out of 3 kids in the Western world are reached through Moonbug's platform. And they've taken that above and beyond, taken it to Netflix and Apple TV and Amazon Prime Video, and have original shows on HBO Max, and it's one of the biggest music labels on Spotify with Spotify Kids, and there's toy licensing around it and apps and games surrounding it. So it really begs a question of what do you do on those platforms? Do you go defensive and say, hey, I need to protect my existing place where I'm at, or you use and leverage those platforms for your own growth? Or you go out and say, I'm going to ignore all of that, or I'm going to build my own platform. So these are the questions that I'm sure we're excited to talk about and discuss. But I'm really, really excited about the creator economy and the creator renaissance.
All right. So if you're in the arts business and you look at 7 billion views, right? That's quite a hefty number, right? I want to kind of deep dive here a little bit. So there's 2 points I want to explore. So I think the first, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a quite big shift in the mechanics of how would you actually approach and making an artistic experience available, right? And it has been very much of a creator specific, but it's I would say an artist specific, but now it's more turning into either creator specific or audience specific, right? And this is a very, very big shift where you're not only thinking about yourself, but you have to really keep in mind where the audience is and who they are.
Absolutely. I think one of the key differences is exactly the way that the content is distributed or used to be distributed. If there was previously, if you think about the movie theater world or TV world, or even for that sake, a museum world, then there's always been a group of people that you have to be, liking or be in a relationship with in order to even have any distribution in any of these channels to get to the people. But now the distribution is completely democratized. It's irrelevant who's sitting in the office there. It's irrelevant who's making the decisions, because decisions, those are open creation platforms. Anybody can upload anything in any format. And it then can be consumed and discovered by individuals who are served through an algorithm. So anybody, if you and I or we here decide to create our own channel about metaverse, or we want to bring those art exhibitions out there, we could do it. And that was never, ever possible before. And we can get discovered, through Oculus Store. We can get discovered on YouTube, and we can build our audiences on top of those platforms. So we can leverage them from our growth and discovery. And those things have not been around before. Yes. So I think in that sense, it's definitely changed the game and completely personalized the experience as well. Because, if somebody decides that it's good for them and they want to show it in their theater, it might be good for you and you might enjoy it, but I would not enjoy it. So algorithmic discovery has also made it much more personal, meaning that we could all enjoy our own version of whatever the art that we would like to consume.
The other myth I would like to have your comment upon is that the creator content is somehow childish or entertaining. So is that really so?
Couldn't be further from the truth. I think it's like an easy way to ignore, and that's maybe just because many of the platforms start off, of course, by having not as high quality content on the platform, because you're not able to build sustainable businesses on those platforms. The reality is now that those brands have built significant audiences around them that has a lot of value, and suddenly they can build themselves into whatever form they want. So the quality of what they're doing on those platforms is no different than the quality that you see in movie theaters or cinemas, or take TV, or even, again, take someone like art exhibition for that matter. The artists that are operating online, they just have come to the scene through an independent route, being able to discover and build their audiences directly. And that's what's actually most of the kind of older world is missing. They're missing access to that audience. And if I put something out there that 100 million people are going to see, that just doesn't exist in that world. You can't force feed people anymore, because people expect a personalized experience that is relevant for them. And I think they wouldn't watch or spend time if it's low quality, not interesting. And I think that's an easy argument to say, to just ignore the whole world.
Ernst & Young recently also published quite an interesting study on the behaviors of Gen Z, so anyone born later than 2000s. And it was quite interesting to see that it was quite heavily stressed in that particular study that the trust base, or also the value formation base for Gen Z is something completely different than for millennials or anybody before. For millennials and old people like us, usually they basically trust people of authority or status or they make examples of Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or anybody else. And actually it was quite interesting to see that for Gen Z, they actually trust the quote unquote real people, basically people, the creators that they can interact with, that they see and so forth. So I guess that has also very widespread consequences for any type of kind of experience delivery, because if you want to talk to that audience, you then have to understand their patterns and their engagement points.
Yes.
Sander,
keep in mind a third of the kids want to become YouTubers now, where it used to be, astronauts or football players. I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing, but that's where the aspirations lie.
So I'm going to throw out a little brick here into the space of the metaverse, so the audience who are more on art policy. There, of course, have been a lot of discussions around what would be a kind of a future art policy or creative policy in Europe would be. Especially in the intersection of tech and creativity and so on. And, believe me a lot, basically thinking online creators in many countries so far have been never legitimized or until now legitimized as proper artists or proper creators, right? I've rarely seen a policy or an industry strategy where, they would be basically treated equally as, any other creators, professional musicians or filmmakers and etc. And if you start thinking about the fact that their engagement points are building or already building now audiences and the future audiences, then and they are also paying taxes as proper European citizens or wherever they are from. So then it's quite striking that we're not really yet paying attention in the big picture what happens in the creative space. I want now to lastly come into the big leaps in technology and especially in synthetic media and AI, and this is where the kind of the connection point to the metaverse and immersive comes in. What for you, the last year has been quite tremendous for virtual characters and also AI getting into the space for like synthetic simulation, virtual humans. Epic, for example, has released its own virtual human graders. Digital Domain has done a lot of work, and there's a lot of deep sort of semi-legit deepfake tools out there as well. What drives, if Laura said that there were 1,000 people who could get their own avatar in the Vappu metaverse, like what drives the audiences to virtual characters? What drives this business? We can think about Lil Miquela and their shadows and some others as well. What's the catch in there?
I think there's two elements to it. One is on the creation side. Like none of this was really possible before. It's mostly been enabled by the achievements in machine learning that we have now, so that we can even produce those characters. So when the machine recognition for visual recognition or audio recognition surpassed human capability in 5 years ago, that opened up the way for us to even start producing it. And now when we can synthesize voices that are 92% sound like human, anybody can speak 80 languages, you can produce 20 seconds of content in 1 second, like all of those things have completely democratized the creativity. Meaning like previously, if you wanted to shoot a movie or let's say even an image, you needed a whole crew. You need to spend around $200,000 to get all of that organized. That moved down to when it became digital. You could have a SLR camera and you can connect it to your computer and you can edit it. That setup was around $2,000. But now with AI and the virtual characters, just for $20, any one of us can be a film director and a filmmaker. And I think that completely democratized the space, and yes. That's still that tsunami is yet to come as those tools get more and more popular. But also it's really important to populate those digital spaces, with stories. We have AI writing stories that are indistinguishable by humans. If you Google GPT-3 and some of the poems that have been written by it or articles, then you'll find how actually good it is. And if you connect that with the virtual characters and the human stories that you can connect with, it becomes really, really interesting. Whether that ends up being, virtual creators like Lil Makoa or Shadows, how they're building their character universe, or it ends up being, AI companions or digital humans in movies, or digital humans in kind of physical space through avatars. Those all kind of is to be seen. But I think that canvas is really what enabled the democratization, that enabled the creation of something that is lifelike and something that we can be available to anybody, even without the camera, without lights and microphone and all the good things that we're blessed with in some parts of the world and other parts of the world where it isn't available yet.
So that leads us to the metaverse discussion, which we could talk about, I guess, hours and hours and hours. But Laura, Zoan is already doing, I think, a lot of really exciting work in the intersection of building, I think, a little island or a part of metaverse where the real and the virtual comes together. Can you a little bit talk about this tokenization project with Helsinki or not?
Yes, well, basically, we are working with many types of partners, our clients, and currently, I think for the past year, what I've been talking when I talk with potential clients is mostly about metaverse. I'm not saying that the metaverse is here, jump right in, but it's more like that this is sort of the next phase of the internet, and we are going towards that. And the pioneering brands have already started exploring the metaverse and what that could mean for you. And we think that you should try it too. Are you interested? And most of them are, because the thing is that what we see now is that, well, we are really building worlds. For us at Zoan, we are exploring with a virtual headquarter. For many of our clients, we are bringing their environments to life for virtual productions or their potential clients to explore, maybe even see a glimpse of what's new and up and coming in the next launches. So there are so many ways you can sort of make this thing happening. And I believe and I hope that the metaverse will actually start consisting of these little pieces that each and everyone, what Jusander said, the creators, just individuals are making, also what companies, organizations, artists are making. And in the end, in the coming years, it will come together, all this development that is happening in different areas. So that is what we are working with at the moment.
And I guess there is also this really interesting opportunity as well, as the virtual somehow is the representation of the real, in a sense that some IP, for example, transcends. There's been story of this, for example, like if you would use an Eiffel Tower in a virtual space, and in real life you have to pay the city of Paris in order to have the Eiffel Tower in your film, right? And those 2 points need to come together in some form of an economy.
Exactly, and this is just one of the examples. Like a couple of years ago, when we were talking with Helsinki about building the next phase of virtual Helsinki, I was just saying like that. Has anyone ever given a thought to this? That who owns the digital version of Helsinki? Like, and they were like that. No, well, I don't think that we have come that far yet. But I think
you technologists.
A serious question. Yeah, it is a serious question, and yeah. So who gets to utilize and what? So yeah, a good point, and that's also something we are discussing. So basically, with Helsinki, so we are now gathering our best minds and starting to discuss about this metaverse and how Helsinki should proceed with that. Of course, as a city, Helsinki has been a great success story for the gaming industry. There are many big gaming houses, Supercell, Rovio,
yeah.
Others too. But could Helsinki become something relevant as a part of the metaverse? And what does the metaverse mean? Does it mean that we will need to sort of attract the best virtual minds to virtual Helsinki, to that part of the metaverse, to create something amazing? What does it mean in practice? How can you put that on your city strategy? That's an interesting question, and will be exciting to have a discussion around that.
And it's quite interesting that COVID, in a way, it has not only taken things from us, but it also has given us tremendous opportunities. We still want to engage with, those spaces and humans and organizations and so forth. And we don't necessarily want to engage with them on a flat screen, but we want to have some type of a immersion in there. And I think this is exactly where metaverse is playing out. Sander, what's your take on the metaverse? You're already experimenting, with some of your clients on projects on metaverse. What do you think are the biggest use cases or the most relevant use cases that are about to emerge?
I'm really excited about it. I think there's several things that are mixed up oftentimes, and I think as Laura said, like it is truly the next version of an internet or next iteration, next computing platform around us. So when we move from the internet era to mobile internet era, we're now on our way to what we would call a metaverse. And why? Like, what makes it different from, let's say, looking at putting on your VR headset and just, being present in the world or having a sense of agency? I think there's many other areas that are not discussed or are very little discussed that just kind of hide behind the metaverse term. Our metaverse needs to be open for anybody to create on it. It needs to be interoperable, so we can all cross different experiences with our, same clothes and same assets that we have. We should be able to own stuff. We should be able to build an economy on top of that. It's truly a platform where the participants of the marketplace make more than the controller of the platform. They need to be persistent. When I go in and out, it still remains the same. My stuff is there. It's not gone. And it can be experienced live and synchronously. I think those are the key elements of metaverse, and those truly differentiate it from a mobile world. When mobile was enabled by having HTML and Java on the web and having App Store to distribute your experiences and having 4G connection and having Visa and MasterCard to process your payments, I think those things then eventually became mobile internet. And now everybody, each one of our job is somehow impacted by the mobile internet. I think metaverse will have the same thing. As we have those movements, we could just see those elements, hardware being developed. We have some of the powerful cloud processing platform. We have powerful devices in our pockets. We have some first initial glasses coming out, AR glasses coming out. We see digital economies forming, with NFTs coming to the market, open standards to trade. We have wallets, digital wallets, so we can own stuff and prove our ownership. We see user behavior changing, building a relationship digitally is fine now. 40% of heterosexual couples meet online now. 65% of homosexual couples meet online now. Like, those things have literally changed in the last 10 years. Gaming is now fine. It's mainstream. It's not used or stigmatized if we play. So we see those different movements happening around how user behavior is changing, economy is forming, how the hardware is developing, and the software, tools to create are developing. We have open standards like WebXR and OpenXR that we can now utilize to build our experiences or render our experiences on. So I think that's what really excites me, is that to see those elements coming together. And yes, there are elements, in gaming that we see this, blockchain platforms like Decentra and CryptoVoxels who digitize land and you'll be able to own land in virtual space, or play to earn games or virtual concerts. Like, they can actually, they're very different. Like, when Lil Nas puts a concert up and 33 million people consume it, and he sells almost $10 million worth of merchandise, that's real. Like, that's not, a gimmick, and it feels different than being, in person in that live concert or looking at, at a Twitch stream of that concert. So it feels different because of all of those elements that are around it. And the new types of work that it creates, or the opportunities, again, that it democratizes. You can be an art curator based in Sri Lanka, and you can have your, museum available globally. Like, that was not available before, right? You have to be in some of the big cities like New York, London, or you have to be in Helsinki to do that. But in this world, you can be anywhere, and those opportunities are fully democratized. So your talent can come from anywhere. And of course, like that's really what excites me. And you see that new generation, the Gen Zs, there's more than 210 million people on Roblox creating on their platform. Minecraft, 125 million monthly active users. Like those numbers are like huge, impressive audiences you can talk to and build upon today.
It's quite interesting. Yeah, like a few days ago, I just checked the statistics for Estonian game industry, and believe me or not, the biggest taxpayer in the game industry was a company that was actually creating virtual characters for Metaverse. So here you go. Look, I think our time is wrapping up. There's one thing I really want to touch here is is there any opportunity for Europe? I saw the news yesterday that Facebook has just recently set aside another $50 million to do those those metaverse experiments and invest them into companies working in that space. Epic is already creating its own world and being boxing with Apple a little bit. We have a kind of a game engine semi-lock-in perhaps in that space and etc. So how much of that future, which I also agree certainly is going into that new exciting intersection between the physical, how much of that agency or how much of control or how much decision-making power we can still have in Europe or outside of US, what say there is for independent creators and companies such as Zoan or, Sander, any of those companies that you are working with? Who wants to go first? Let's be hopeful.
Well, we need to be hopeful, and of course, I want to believe that there is a chance. Of course, currently the dominant companies come from the US, and that they've also been there for a while during the mobile internet era, for instance. So of course, they have the resources to also build the next phase. But in a certain way, I also hope that this independent creators exist and they will also have a significant role, and there will be the new ways of creating stuff that nobody knows about yet, and maybe we can find those next TikToks from there and
Yes.
not from Google or Facebook or anything like that. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm really hoping for one of those could come from Europe.
Sander.
I'm hopeful and optimistic, but only because we already see some of the elements coming from Europe. Like, for example, a Finnish creator on TikTok who created a feta cheese pasta trend on TikTok. Like what she did in Finland, that got feta cheese sold out globally. Almost in every country, it was sold out because there was a creator with her recipe from Finland who created that wave. So I think we just need to embrace those creators that we already have around us, who are creating on those platforms. As you said, like whether they're in Estonia, they're in Finland, they're in Germany, like Switzerland, like wherever they are, those creators exist today. We need to embrace them, legitimize them, support them, build community and economy around them, and then be a significant competition in the global scale, rather than just fighting for the old and protecting the old, which I think is still relevant, but just modernizing it and giving it even more power and growth through those new opportunities that we have around us. So in that sense, I remain hopeful and optimistic as long as we embrace and support and legitimize being an independent creator in Europe and really being open to the global platforms rather than trying to focus just, European creators and European platforms, but thinking about European creators and global platforms and how we can all be stronger together.
Yeah, and if I can add, so basically what we have done after the first concert I told you about, we've run several concerts, we've made money, and now we are finalizing our own sort of concert. I wouldn't call it a platform, but it's something new. So that's also
Exactly.
an example that can become a hit and define the way we are consuming music. Somebody's gonna do it, and I think it also could be us.
Fantastic. Laura, Sander,
Congrats.
thank you so much for this extremely well-spent hour. If I can do a little recap, the future of immersive experiences for museum and artistic organizations is here already. It doesn't necessarily mean headsets. Those can actually already happen on your computer or any of the devices. So please do check out some of this amazing work that Zoan has been doing in this space, including the new platform for running those immersive concerts. You have to really experience it. It's something quite special. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us from LA at this very early morning and giving us the heads up on creators and the platforms. If you don't have the platform strategy yet, then think about if you want to be eaten, you understand the platforms, or you build one yourself. Thank you so much for attending this session, and please enjoy the Artec Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.